Today we are working on the 1983 Honda CB450SC Nighthawk, and our first project that we actually have parts for is going to be the rear brake drums. Right now she's sitting at 16,267-ish miles, so it's got some well-earned brake dust on there, and yeah, shoes are a little worse for wear. We got some rivets poking through. Luckily they have not damaged the drum surface and the wheel too bad. They are pretty grungy, so when you actuate them, they don't exactly return easily. So we're gonna head over to the parts washer, get this thing a little denastified. But first, we're gonna get these brake shoes off of there. Alright, we got this dude disassembled. These are going to go by the wayside. And all the components out that need clean, grease, all that goodness before it goes back together. As some of you guys might be aware, this is a rat bike project, so it's not about looking pretty, but we definitely want it to function and be safe. So let's head over to the parts washer and get some of that crusty out of there. And here we find a shop's most dangerous weapon on nasty, crusty stuff. A bench grinder with a wire wheel on it. Let's get to cleaning some of this junk. One important thing to note on these when you're working with the internals on the brakes, anywhere you see a channel like this cut into something, that is a grease reservoir. So we're going to put us a film of grease on that where it slides through that bushing, and that'll take the place of all that stuff. Another fairly important part of the brake setup on this is this little felt ring that goes on that shaft. That's going to be your weather and your dust seal. So we want to protect that thing and save it in case our kit doesn't come with a new one. Alright, after allowing some time for this thing to dry, that is with an air blower at 150 psi, it is time to start sliding stuff back together. I'm going to start off with this guy here. Like I said, we're going to grease up these grooves here for the grease reservoir. And again, we don't want a lot, we just want a decent smear on here. Enough that it's in the grooves pretty good. We don't want it mushing out of every surface on the thing. Slide this guy through from the inside. Make sure we got a nice smooth operation on it. And you don't want to over grease this stuff, because you don't want grease all rolling around inside of your brakes. If you got too much in there and it's able to get a bunch of dirt and crap clumped up in it, it can ball up and roll around inside your brakes, and that's a bad day. And we're going to tuck our felt ring back in here for a little protection. I'm going to slap just a little bit of leftover grease on the bottom of this thing. Mainly just to wipe my finger off, I'm not going to lie. Okay, now we're going to put on our guide. Once the arrow on the tab reaches the arrow on the cover, it means your brakes is worn out, and it is time to replace them dudes. This has also been a little jacked up over time, so we're going to fix the angle of the dangle on this beast. Be sure and note you got one wide spline in here. You got a wide spline on your shaft right there. Line them up, good to go. That should put your inside flat portion in line straight across from the anchor block on the other side. When it comes time to remount your lever, the stock position is to line up the dimple on this arm with the dimple on this shaft. Yeah, we may have to adjust this a little bit for the customosity of the bike. So we're not going to tighten that all the way down yet. Now I did wire brush the inside portion of this best I could, and I am going to apply just a real light film of grease once this goes on the bike, because this is where your pin's going to go through for the brake linkage. On this bike, it's been converted over to a cable and gotten rid of that old bar setup. Now it's time for some brakes. No big a deal. All right. We get our springs on here. I very highly recommend getting the springs on your brake shoes first, instead of trying to put the shoes on and then stretch the springs onto them. Doing it this way is so much easier, as I struggle getting the spring onto the shoe. There we go. Ta-da! Alright, now before we put that in there, this has already been brushed clean a little bit, but we are going to apply just a little bit of that white schmoo on there. Again, you don't want to overdo it, just enough to keep the surface smooth and moving free. You can use caliper grease for this. I'm just using a little packet of high temp grease that I had. It's all going to work out all right. And we'll put us a little smear on these flat sides. It'll help with the brakes being able to return to their rest position. All right, here we go. So we can pull these guys apart best as we can. Go ahead and anchor the back sides, and we'll spread this front side over, just like that. Drop those down. Boom, we got brake shoes. Go ahead and set our washer on there, and we'll find us a nice new shiny cotter pin somewhere. And after reassembly, as you can tell, the brakes actually actuate now. Crazy stuff, right? All right, let's get to work on that wheel. And upon a real quick inspection, this thing needs a little more than brakes, because I'm pretty sure this dude's supposed to spin, and yeah, she's pretty solid. So, aside from the nasty you can see in here, which is going to get a little bit of dressing, we are still well and operating tolerant. And yet again, we're going to break out the trusty digital caliper. And for the sake of metricness, we'll measure this in millimeters. So we know we got a maximum operating diameter of 141 millimeters. And this guy is currently measuring 139.94. So we've got some meat to clean this guy up. I've already test fitted the brakes in, and they do actuate quite rapidly. So I think we've got plenty of material in here. And we're back. And with that, I think we'll call it a wrap on episode 1. Makes more sense to break this up into episodes because there's going to be quite a lot going on with this bike. So episode 1, rear brakes are rebuilt, rear drum has been kind of dressed. We'll pick up next time on wheel bearings and start working our way toward the front of the bike. See what else goes wrong and what needs replaced. We'll catch you next time on episode 2 of the Rat Trap Rebuild.